about the Christmas box, which I think Mike will have displayed in a moment. There we are. Okay, there are two of them here tonight. Mine and one that we've just seen Mike pick up. If I may just refer to my notes. That's better now. Is that okay? That's fine. Okay. War broke out, as we know, in the summer of 1914, and it was sort of common thought that they'd all be home by Christmas. Which Christmas was not specified, but home by Christmas was the thing the newspapers said. It soon became apparent that wasn't to be the case. And in October 1914, the reigning monarch, George V's 17-year-old daughter, Mary, subsequently to become the Princess Royal and the Countess of Harewood, decided that she ought to do something for these poor chaps that were overseas, or rather overseas or on the sea. So she launched a fund to enable every man that was serving afloat or at the front on Christmas Day 1914 to receive some gift. What actually happened was that £152,000 was raised by public subscription, and that enabled the initial production, at least, of these boxes that you can see there. They were made of brass, solid brass for the men, and solid silver for the officers. I've never seen a silver one or even a picture of a silver one. Presumably they felt they were worth too much and they were melted down. I don't know. But that's the brass one. My particular sample, that's not actually my sample there now. Mine is up there. Mine I've never polished. It had been polished before it came into my ownership, but I never polished it. And it still retains some lustre to it. It has on its face, there we are, that's nice, it's blown up, names of various countries which were in the Allied side, as it were, by then. Japan, Russia, Montenegro, Serbia with a V, not a B. That apparently was the old way of spelling it. And France, and of course the Britannicum Imperium, the British Empire. There is the image of Princess Mary, and the two M's, and the date Christmas 1914. Anyway, they contained various gifts. They contained the sort of gifts that men at the time would have enjoyed. An ounce of tobacco, a packet of cigarettes, a cigarette lighter, a Christmas card and photograph of the Princess Royal, and also something sweet, either chocolate or lemon drops or other sorts of sweet. Originally intended for those who were serving at the front on Christmas Day, it was soon extended to anybody who was actually bore the King's uniform at Christmas 1914. So whether they were in the UK or abroad. And 400,000 of these boxes actually made it to the front by Christmas 1914, but the full distribution of some 2.5 million didn't actually get completed until 1920. Some 6 years later. So there we are. And it wasn't just the British troops that received them, it was anybody in the British Empire, which of course, as we all can remember from our school days, were those areas of the map that were pink. Everywhere in the world, the sun never set on it. Now, how did this box come into my possession? Well, I was heartened that tonight I'm not the only one here whose parents served in the Great War. I'm probably the youngest one whose parents were so to do. My father, George Henry Charles Jenkins, born in 1899, joined in 1917. His elder brother, Francis Joseph Jenkins, who was born in 1896, was in the army by Christmas 1914, hence the box. I never met Uncle Frank. He, together with my father's father, my father's first wife, and my father's brother-in-law, all died within 9 months of each other in 1953. I came along when my father married again, some 2.5 years later. My mother, incidentally, would have been 100 this coming Saturday, so Armistice Tide has always had some special meanings to us. Now, we don't know much about Uncle Frank's service. He did serve overseas. I know my father didn't. He didn't talk much about it. He mentioned he hated the term grenade. We did have one at home at one stage that had been turned into a money box with a thread. What happened to it, I don't know. He called them Mills bombs. He did tell me that the important thing was that if you were to throw them, you had to count to 5, not too quickly after you pulled the pin out. Otherwise, I suspect they'd found this by practical experience, the Germans would throw the things back. So, and one got one's own back, so to speak. Father, again, as I said, he didn't speak much about it. He didn't see service overseas. I think he was an Aldershot his whole time. I'm not even sure what he was in. He was of Herefordshire stock. He was Herefordshire stock, and his parents married at St Mary Portsea. So quite what he and his brother were in, I really don't know. But one little amusing anecdote he did tell me was the immunisations. All the soldiers lined up for the various checks. I won't go into all of them. I'm sure anybody who's been in the armed services will know what some of them were and some of the nicknames for them. But one of the things they had was immunisations. And this was the first time most of them had ever seen any sort of hypodermic needle. Father described it as something like a small bicycle pump made from brass. And the men were lined up, their arms were bared. Some of them keeled over at the sight of this thing and were seen to later. But those that didn't, the same needle went into the whole lot of them. It was just a wipe on the arm, a wipe of the needle, and then on to the next man and back. But of course, it saved them from some pretty awful diseases. I think that's probably all I can say. Nothing else really here. No, I mean, again, I'll reiterate, because I think others have done, that they didn't talk much about it. Even those that didn't serve overseas. It was such a differing experience. They left their village or their town sometimes in search of adventure, but not always. By the time my father joined up, I don't think anybody thought it was an adventure anymore. But we've heard a fair bit about statistics of numbers of people killed compared to those who actually survived. An interesting thing, which is fairly public knowledge, and a lot of the railway stations in Western England have got the large Great War memorials produced by the then largest railway company, the Great Western Railway. And of the Great Western Railways, 99,000 what would then have been described as officers and servants. Some 30%, 33,000 of them actually served in the armed forces, and of those, about 10% fell, and those are the names listed. So, although we've heard a lot about survival rates, it probably overall, for the number of people who served, it wasn't extremely high out of the population at large. But I think it very much depended on where they were and how long they'd been in it. So I think that's all I can say. I'll bore the rest of you all night otherwise.